For all your t-shirt needs, check out TeePublic's Killer Selection. Follow the link in the description. Hey, what's up, people? Pizzal here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the new Severin Films Blu-ray release for 1980's The Changeling. Now, this is partially going to be a review of the movie as well as a review of this Blu-ray release. And The Changeling is about a composer played by the late great George C. Scott who, after the tragic deaths of his wife and daughter, decides to relocate to the Pacific Northwest, where he moves into a Gothic old Victorian mansion. And much like 99.9% of Gothic old Victorian mansions, this one is haunted. However, in the case of The Changeling, it is haunted by the spirit of a young boy who is reaching out to George C. Scott's character for help. And The Changeling is a movie that I had not seen in many, many years. That's why I jumped at the opportunity to check out this Blu-ray from Severin Films. And the thing that really grabbed me about this film, watching it again for the first time in many years, was the atmosphere of complete and utter foreboding and grief that just permeates this entire film, literally from the word go. And a lot of that has to do with director Peter Medak, who does a phenomenal job directing this movie. And a lot of that also has to go to the performance of George C. Scott, who is an actor that whenever I'm watching a George C. Scott movie, I can't take my eyes off of him. He is absolutely captivating. I could watch George C. Scott chew gum because he would chew gum like this. It would be captivating. I could watch a whole movie of George C. Scott just chewing gum. But his performance in this film, and I think it's one of his most understated and underappreciated performances. A great performance from George C. Scott in The Changeling. He carries this movie. You care about him. You like him. You feel his loss. You feel his grief. And he delivers an excellent, excellent performance. And now this is the kind of movie... I can't really call it a horror movie. Yes, it's kind of a haunted house, supernatural kind of movie. But much like, at least in my opinion, the best kinds of haunted house or supernatural movies, at the core of them, it's really a human story. And the human story drives the movie. And yes, there's bumps in the night and things move and, there's odd and eerie things that happen along the way, but really it's a human story. And definitely The Changeling is very, very, very much a human story. Now, the paranormal aspects of the film are handled beautifully. There's sort of an investigative kind of part of the film as well that's handled really well. It's very riveting. It's the kind of movie that doesn't rely on, the cheap boo scares or the big loud stingers on the soundtrack to make sure the audience isn't asleep or to wake up the members of the audience that have fallen asleep. It really relies on style. It relies on subtlety. It relies on suspense. It relies on great performances, great performances in this film all around. This is just a really good supernatural thriller that is driven by the human story. I cannot say enough good things about this movie. I cannot recommend it enough. Great performances, exceptionally well-made movie. The music in the film is absolutely phenomenal. The pacing is good. I really like this movie. This Blu-ray release from Severin Films, if you are a fan of The Changeling, you definitely want to look into picking up this Blu-ray. If you've never seen The Changeling, again, I highly recommend it. This Blu-ray would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. Now, the back of the Blu-ray case doesn't indicate any kind of elaborate transfer or restoration, but the picture quality and the sound quality of this release are both very good. Now, in some of the darker sequences in the film, the picture quality can get pretty grainy, but overall, the picture quality is pretty darn good for this release. I'd give it a 3.5 to 4 out of 5. Sound quality, again, same thing, 3.5 to 4 out of 5. The movie looks great. The movie sounds great. And we get a lot of extras on this release. And they include, first up, we have The House on Cheeseman Park, the haunting true story of the Changeling. At 17 minutes and 32 seconds in length, Dr. Phil Goodstein, an author and historian, discusses the ghoulish and gruesome history of Cheeseman Park in the late 1800s and the house nearby that is allegedly haunted, the musician who rented the house, the creepy things that happened while he lived in the house, and the things that he discovered while living in the house that served as the inspiration for the film The Changeling. And Mr. Goldstein's telling of The House on Cheeseman Park is highly entertaining. Very, very nice extra for this Blu-ray release. Next up, we have the music of The Changeling. It's 8 minutes and 58 seconds in length. It's an interview with music arranger Kenneth Wanberg. Mr. Wanberg discusses working with John Williams on Star Wars. Mr. Wanberg has worked with the cream of the crop when it comes to Hollywood directors. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, he's worked on tons and tons of big movies. He discusses working on the music for The Changeling and how he loved working on scary movies. He discusses the process of creating music for the film and arranging the music throughout the film. Mr. Wanberg discusses being very happy with the end result of The Changeling. Nice interview with Mr. Wanberg. Next up, we have Building the House of Horror. It's an interview with art director Ruben Fried. It's 10 minutes and 54 seconds in length. Mr. Fried discusses getting his start in the business as a set designer and how much he enjoyed set design. He discusses working on The Changeling, creating the sets for the film, the facade of the main house, all the little intricacies they used to make the house look like a real old Victorian mansion, but make it manageable and movable so that they could work fast while filming. Mr. Fried discusses that the film was a real thrill for him to work on and how happy he is to have been a part of The Changeling. Very nice interview with Mr. Fried. Next up, we have Master of Horror Mick Garris on The Changeling. It's 5 minutes and 30 seconds in length. Mr. Garris discusses how emotional and heartbreaking the film is and how you don't get that depth in modern horror films. He discusses George C. Scott's performance in the film. He discusses asking Peter Medak, the director of The Changeling, to be a part of his Masters of Horror series. Mr. Garris discusses The Changeling's legacy and how it's achieved a greater status in the horror genre and with filmmakers like Martin Scorsese over the years. Nice interview with Mr. Garris. Next up, we get The Psychotronic Tourist, The Changeling. It's 16 minutes and 2 seconds in length. It is a revisiting of the shooting locations from the film, featuring appearances from Michael Gingold, Ted Gaffen, and Ryan Nicholson. We get a still gallery, we get a trailer for the film, and a TV spot for the film. We also get an audio commentary with director Peter Medak and producer Joel B. Michaels, moderated by David Gregory of Severin Films. It was actually recorded on what would have been George C. Scott's 90th birthday. Peter Medak discusses wanting George C. Scott to be in the film, but wanting to cast George C. Scott in the film, but how scared he was of him initially based on his reputation. Medak discusses that the script scared him actually when he first read it, and so he was determined to make the film. They discuss the various shooting locations. Michaels discusses the true story that inspired the film. I listened to about 30 to 35 minutes of the film with the commentary. Very informative, very entertaining commentary with Mr. Medak, Michaels, and Mr. Gregory. This is a very nice Blu-ray release from the fine folks over at Severin Films for The Changeling. I highly recommend the film. I also highly recommend this Blu-ray release. If you're a fan of The Changeling, you definitely want to look into picking up this Blu-ray release from Severin Films and adding it to your collection. The picture quality and the sound quality are both fantastic. We get some great extras on here as well. If you've not seen The Changeling, this Blu-ray would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. I'll put a link to Severin's website down in the description. Go over and check them out. If you've seen The Changeling. Please let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments section below. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Join the A Buck a Month Club and help support my channel on Patreon. Thank you to my current patrons, Kevin Smythe, Orc145626, B-Movie Mike, Robert Sobel, Turi Delamore, Stephen Flanagan, Lori Holt, Mitch Odell, Farron Sutton, Craig Farrand, Jeremiah Lambert, Grindhouse Grotto, Joseph Charlesworth, PB Sam 6, Derek Jana, Demon Waffles, Tim Williams, Stone Gassman, Zachary Barton, Mr. Bibby 86, James Welch, Eli Geisler, Jeff Overing, and Cliff Hostetter. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.